If you have questions or suggestions for future podcasts, please submit them in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The avatar election. Hi, I'm Dave Arnott, the Christian Economist. In the recent national election, we were encouraged to vote for a representation of the representative, not for the real human. Many candidates avoided debates, stayed out of public, and hoped their constituents would have greater fear of the competition than appreciation for the candidate. Many avatars won. What is an avatar? The first definition is from the Hindu belief system. An avatar is a manifestation of a deity. The second definition is the one we are more familiar with. It is a figure representing a person. An avatar is a representation of a human. It is not a human. I took one of my granddaughters to see the movie Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I've often said, if you want to see divorce and bankruptcy, go talk to your neighbors. We pay $15 and invest over 2 hours of time to escape reality. But the latest Wakanda movie is just too far for me. There is so much sci-fi content that I didn't really enjoy it. I really liked the first one, by the way. That's because it developed the characters and I gained an appreciation for them. But undeveloped strivers who can't make a decision just bore me. I'm not even going to get into the anti-Christian and anti-American themes in the movie. I'll let you invest your own $15 and 160 minutes for that information. It's just a bunch of fake good people fighting fake bad people, and I don't much care about either of them. Oh, there is an economic story in the movie, by the way. It's fake also. They assume that Wakanda got rich by hoarding their supply of vibranium in a closed economy. And that's never happened in the real world. Closed economies die. Open economies thrive. The basement election. Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election campaigning mostly from his basement. You see, humans are pretty simple creatures in this regard. We observe what works and we do more of it. Students in my class at Dallas Baptist University have figured out that class attendance correlates with higher grades. National Football League teams have figured out that passing wins more games than running. My grandkids have figured out that I'll buy them just about any flavor of Slurpee at 7-Eleven. Candidates have figured out they can win an election by hiding in their basement. Now that's dangerous. It's dangerous to vote for a candidate you don't know. It's dangerous to accept a religion you can't explain. And it's dangerous to participate in an economy you don't understand. Feeling versus thinking. So if there was a lack of debates and public information, how did voters make their choices? Mostly from the impact of ads. Those ads were not about the candidate. They're about the avatar that the political campaign creates. Now, I unpack feeling versus thinking in my podcast number 97. When voters can't get factual information about the candidate, they vote based on feelings, not facts. And they're more motivated by fear. Ginger reminds me that podcast number 88, Don't Fear the Future, is the most viewed of my podcasts. But people do fear. They fear the future. They fear a lot of things. Fear is a good motivator, and it's becoming the greatest motivator in elections. Think about it. Most of the campaigns smeared the opposition. They didn't build up their own candidate. Now, back to my previous discipline of management. It's often said that there are two motivators, carrots and sticks. You should use carrots as long as you can, then revert to sticks. Politics has moved almost totally to sticks. Most of the campaign ads are dark and foreboding, predicting a dire future if you vote for the other party. Fear is a strong motivator if you're a non-believer. But for believers, it doesn't work. We believe God is in charge. Romans 13, 1-2 says, There is no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. Therefore, he who resists authority has opposed the ordinance of God. Economic rationality. Jesus was logical, and he didn't back away from a debate. Okay, maybe once, when he was being questioned by Pilate, he didn't respond that time. But that was to fulfill the prophecy in Isaiah 53:7, which says, He was oppressed and afflicted, and yet he did not open his mouth. Other than that, Jesus loved a good debate. When he was 12 years old, his parents left him in Jerusalem, then found him in the temple courts, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. In his recent book, Logic and the Way of Jesus, my fellow professor at Dallas Baptist University, Travis Dickinson, provides many well-substantiated examples about Jesus engaging in the kind of logic that was common in first century Roman culture. Christianity is based in rational thought. Economics is also. Now that's why modern monetary theory is so shocking to economists. I showed the U.S. debt clock to my students at Dallas Baptist University recently and made this very easy prediction that in a few years, we'll look back at the 6 years between your freshman year in high school and your sophomore year in college, and we will wonder why we allowed the national debt to balloon from $20 trillion to $30 trillion. That is not consistent with economic reality. That was done by avatars playing in virtual reality with other people's money. And 4 of those years were during one of the best economies in the history of mankind. That was the 4 years of the Trump administration, when the economy was growing so fast that the poor were getting richer faster than the rich. Even during those years, the federal government was taking in about $3 trillion a year and spending about $4 trillion. Yeah. For a group who likes to use the term sustainable, they don't know much about economic sustainability. When Sergei Seidamatov and I wrote Biblical Economic Policy, one of our 10 commandments of biblical economics was use honest measures. Going into debt by more than $1 trillion a year is not sustainable. Increasing the debt from 20 to 30 trillion in only 6 years is stealing. It's my generation stealing from the next generation. I've told my sophomores at DBU, I'm not going to pay the interest on this 10 trillion in additional debt. You are. Think about it. In about 20 years, I'll be near the end of my life. They'll be in the most productive earning years of their lives, but they'll be hamstrung by the additional 30 trillion in debt was piled up by voters and will be mostly paid by people who are too young to vote. That's taxation without representation, by the way. And we fought a war over that about 250 years ago. Christians accept reality. The 9/11 event is remembered for brave firefighters who rushed up the stairs of the Twin Towers as people were running down to escape. Running toward trouble is what Christians have done through the ages. In his wonderful book, Martin Luther, Eric Metaxas explains how Christians stayed with suffering people through plagues. They didn't escape. They looked reality straight in the eye and they dealt with it. Throughout the ages, it has been Christians who rushed into the fire. They did not run away from it. Now, the next time your church is considering a new pastor, see if the candidate takes the avatar approach. When asked to visit with a search committee, does the candidate demur? Does she say, just look at my resume, or my sermons are on YouTube? My students have explained to me how people go online and spend real money for virtual things, property, etc. I'm sorry, that's just too goofy for me. I'm not even going to waste my time researching it. But here's some good advice. Exchange your money for things that are real, not virtual. I was discouraged about a year ago when one of my fellow professors explained her view of the future, that our professor avatars would go into a virtual classroom and give virtual lectures to virtual students. Well, I don't know, would the students earn virtual grades and get a virtual job, and would they pay them in virtual money to buy virtual goods? I don't know. Okay, maybe I'm just an old guy, but I prefer to spend my time in the real world. Time is an economic good. Any time you spend in the virtual world is time lost in the real world. And that's where many political candidates spent their time in the recent political campaigns. Colson Center President John Stonestreet recently asked, whatever happened to relativism, where you could believe anything you want? Because now, if you believe something different, you're shouted down and not allowed to speak. Yeah, I've said for years that relativism is an advantage for the Christian belief system. When we have an equal voice in the debate, we win. But there has to be a debate. I'll close with my favorite Christmas wish. A man was in a hole and couldn't get out. A Hindu Swami came by and said, if you do good enough in this life, you'll get out in the next life. A Buddhist bhikkhu came by and said, you'll get out if you follow the Noble Eightfold Path. A Muslim imam came by and said, you'll get out when Allah wills you to get out. A Jewish rabbi came by and said, you'll get out if you follow the law. Jesus came by and got in the hole with us. Emmanuel, God with us. The real God, not an avatar. I'm Dave Arnott, the Christian Economist. Fear God, tell the truth, earn a profit. See you next time. For more information, please visit us online at davearnott.com. If you have questions or suggestions for future podcasts, please submit them online or in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.